Are we there? Hi, we're going to get started soon. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 13th collection, our 1-year anniversary show. We started this April of 2025, so that by default makes this our 1-year anniversary. So cheers to you all. I feel pretty excited about that fact. Just being able to do this for the past year has been really just a dream come true for me. I do want to give a shout out to Jason Glover. He's in the back. If you want to wave or applaud, for him. He's been an excellent partner in all this. Had the idea to get this started. We collaborated to come up with this idea in this format. And he's, of course, also running the licensed sound back there and has brought in some excellent readers himself. And it's just been really, really great working with you, Jason. So thank you so much. Okay. I also want to just say thank you quickly to Nat Pudawan. She's the event coordinator here, and to Hugo House in general. Just all the work and support that we've gotten from them has been fantastic. And the way that we've been able to sort of blend the community of writers that are sort of in and around me and the community of writers here at Hugo House. And it's just been fantastic. And Nat did ask me to let you all know there's a mobile bookstore here. They're out front. They're called Feathered Pages. So if you want to check them out during intermission or after the show, feel free to do that as well. So I've got a lot more I could say, but I'll be up a bunch more today, so I can say things later. But for right now, I think I just want to bring up our first reader and get things started. This is going to be Christopher Robinson. Christopher Robinson is a Boston University and Hunter College MFA graduate, a MacDowell Colony Fellow, a Yaddo Fellow, and a Yale Younger Poets Prize finalist. He is the co-author with Gavin Covite of War of the Encyclopedists, which the New York Times called captivating, and Deliver Us, a Forward Indies Book of the Year finalist. He produces the award-winning podcast Hard Knocks and served as an executive producer for the Hulu series The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox. He made his directorial debut with the excellent is a word I added here, 2026 documentary Mouth of the Wolf, and that's also on Hulu. Please welcome Christopher Robinson.
Thank you for that. Excellent. I will take it. Was anyone here like a year ago, the last time I read? Few people? Okay, great. Well, you're going to get chapter 2 of the thing I read last time. This is an excerpt from a novel that I'm working on. In brief, it's kind of a David Mitchell-esque crazy novel that has 3 interwoven plot lines, one of which is about a true crime podcaster who is looking into a cold case of 3 boys who disappeared in White Center in 2007. Another one is a kind of James Patterson style detective thriller. And the third one is the story of these 3 boys in 2007 and what happened to them. So this is a chapter from the boys. This is one of the boys' chapters. And the only thing you really need to know is that they disappeared in White Center in 2007, and this is the day that they disappeared. The relativity of time is self-evident to any 12-year-old watching the second hand of a clock in its begrudging progress through the final minutes of the school day, as slow and inevitable as the passage of youth itself, which seems to never end until it does, unmistakably and irrevocably. But few children can see the ticking clock of their own naivete and wonder, of their spastic energy and puerile joys, the impulse to leap up on a desk or draw cock and balls on the wall of a bathroom stall. And they wake one day to find their childhood preserved like a chapter in a history book. All facts, no fury, no fun. But Angel Perez was not one of those children. Angel could see it coming, and it brought out his inner clown. He caught Santiago's eyes while Mrs. Harvey droned on about their homework assignment, then tossed him a note he'd crumpled into a ball as she turned her back. The desks were arranged in pods of 4, but Angel had long ago been separated from Santiago and Maleko, his best friends, and was now seated near the front with Brian Potts, aka Brian Potty, who'd pooped his pants during recess in 3rd grade, and Janice Wong, who was a teacher's pet, but at least she wrote large and legibly and never made any efforts to hide her quiz answers. Santiago caught the paper ball and quietly uncrumpled it beneath his desk to find a drawing of Mrs. Harvey. Angel had captured her likeness quite well, apart from ballooning her breasts to the size of beach balls. Santiago looked back at Angel, who motioned for him to toss it to Maleko a few pods away. He bit his lip and subtly nodded toward Mrs. Harvey, who was right there and would obviously see. We've done plenty of reading comprehension exercises before, and this is no different, just a bit longer. So read the story and then answer the questions on the back, which, just do it, Angel hissed under his breath, and Mrs. Harvey turned to face him. This was in fact exactly what Angel had anticipated, for though he was now in the hot seat, he was used to it, and it would give Santiago the distraction he needed to pass the drawing back to Maleko. You know, I think you'd like this story, Angel. Can you remind the class what it's about? It's like a lost oak tree or something, right? Up in Canada or some shipwreck or something. Yeah. The class was giggling now, and Santiago crumpled the drawing back up and passed it to Maleko. It's about the Oak Island mystery, Mrs. Harvey said, in Nova Scotia, Canada. I bet it's so cold up there your nipples would fall off, Angel said, playing to the crowd now. But Mrs. Harvey knew not to indulge him, that it was a losing game. So she simply went on. Oak Island is actually about the same latitude as Portland. We're further north than they are here. And if you've been paying attention, you'd know that this story is about buried treasure and a curse. And it's a true story, by the way. They say a dialing sailor from the crew of Captain Kidd. And here, Maleko's booming laugh stopped her short, for he'd just uncrumpled the drawing. But he fell awkwardly silent just as quick, now that Mrs. Harvey was eyeing him. He crumpled up the paper and shoved it into his backpack, which only drew more attention to it, and his cheeks flushed as his future played out in his mind. Mrs. Harvey leaning over his desk, demanding the paper, uncrumpling it in front of the class. But there was the bell. The simmering end-of-school energy came to a boil as all the students made to leave. Don't forget, you should be thinking about your science project for next week, and no more baking soda volcanoes. And they were free. Angel, Santiago, and Maleko found each other in the hallway as the river of students flowed to the idling buses outside. Angel jabbed Maleko in the ribs. You know you want that cono de maestra. Santiago laughed. Shut up, Maleko said. I bet she likes you. You're a man, cabron. and Angel reached up to tickle Maleko's boyishly sparse mustache hairs, which led Maleko to put him in a headlock and take him to the ground on the grass near the buses. Angel lay there laughing as Maleko did his best impression of the Rock's signature move, the people's elbow. It was a warm spring day, and the windows were open on the school bus. The driver, Mr. Cronin, liked to high-five the kids as they entered. Angel gave him the classic, just touching my hair fake out. He plopped down next to Santi, who had his headphones on and was nodding along to the song Para tu Amor by the Colombian pop and rock singer Juanes. Angel thwacked the headphones off his head. Te moja? Cállate, Santi said. Angel was always making fun of his music. And it was true that Juanes was a heartthrob in Colombia, and he did sing about love, but that didn't mean Santi was gay. Though a part of him, buried under the immense weight of that small golden cross around his neck, a gift from his abuela back in Medellin, wondered if he might be. But this thought was not only suffocated, it was uninformed by the awakening revelations of puberty, a seed whose delicate roots were probing into his brain and body, but which had yet to germinate. What Angel didn't know, because Santiago didn't tell him, was that Santi's love of Juanes and of Colombian music in general was a thread that tied him to his family, especially his older sister Maria, who knew every song by heart and who was still back home taking care of abuela. Strange that he thought of Medellin as home, though he could barely remember it. The scent of arepas and buñuelos and empanadas, so much fried corn, the houses painted as bright as tropical flowers, the sound of wet sheets flapping in the breeze, and all of it muted as if through a fogged window. Much the way he remembered his father, a Colombian army officer who had died in a battle with the FARC 9 years ago, when Santi was just 3, a tragedy that led his older brothers to enlist. When the fighting got really bad in 2000, his mother took him away, first to Panama, then Costa Rica, on a dangerous and long journey through Nicaragua, Honduras, through Mexico to San Diego, and then finally up to Seattle, all the while protecting her 3-year-old Joy from a litany of horrors she would not talk about to this day. Listening to Juanes was like pulling back on the thread that connected him to all that, showing its inevitable descent into the gravity well of the past. That shit is whack, yo, Angel said. What are you going to do for your science project? Santiago asked. Man, who cares? I'm going to make a volcano, Maleko chimed in from across the aisle. Didn't you hear Mrs. Harvey? She said no volcanoes, Santiago said. Maleko grinned. Nah, bro, I got cultural heritage. My people were born on volcanoes. Hey, if you team up with Santi, you could use cocaine instead of baking soda. Maleko's head rocked back with laughter. Santiago ignored the cocaine joke. Angel had made 1,000 of them. The bus was pulling up to his stop, a few blocks from his apartment building. See you guys tomorrow, he said, squeezing past Angel. I'll come by later, Angel said. I got homework, so do you. Shit, you'll get it done before I get there. You can get mine done, too. You wish. Angel slapped Santi's backpack as he walked up the aisle and left, then slid over to join Mal, who was intently watching Amy Willis walk off the bus. You gotta use your hands, not your eyes, Angel said. Maleko's brow furrowed, but he didn't look away. If you want to touch her culo. Mal punched him in the shoulder. She gave me a Valentine last year. She gave everyone Valentines. Yeah, but she drew a heart around my name. Dare you to ask her out, Angel said. She was walking down the sidewalk past the bus now. What do I say? Mal said. But before Angel, let me take a drink. What do I say? Mal said. But before Angel could say something stupid, he added, shut up, you don't know. And there she was, right below their open window. Angel elbowed him in the ribs, and Mal stood up to yell outside. It's been said that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the recognition that something else is more important. That may be true for some people, but not for Maleko Olalotola. The desire to be close to Amy Willis didn't overpower his fear, but rather he took a bracing pleasure in the feeling of adrenaline and cortisol flooding his brain, like biting into a lemon or diving into the frigid Puget Sound. There was nothing so exciting as that moment when he knew he was going to do something risky, but had yet to leap off the cliff. And he stretched it out as long as he could. Hey, Amy, he yelled out the window. She turned to look at him, and he met her gaze with a big toothy grin. Say something, wuss, Angel whispered. But he didn't understand that not saying something was the entire point. Maleko held that awkward pause, smiling at Amy, the fear puckering his mouth. And when Amy was just about to turn away, he said, I like your backpack. She rolled her eyes and hurried off with her friends. I like your backpack? Mal shrugged. He was feeling the afterglow of the moment. What had seemed a flub to Angel didn't feel that way to him. If anything, that left her wondering how he really felt, and it allowed him to linger on that cliff edge a little longer, into tomorrow and the next week perhaps. He'd eventually have to jump, but why rush a good thing? At 6:47 that night, Santiago was finishing up the last problem of his math homework in the small kitchen of his apartment, while his mother, Ana, was chatting on the phone with Tia Isabella, who was on her break at Viva Mexico, where she worked as a waitress. He was trying to figure out how much pizza Jeff had left after eating half of it last night and 1/3 of it for breakfast the next morning, while Tia was going off on a rant Santi had overheard a dozen times. Her voice was that loud, even when it wasn't on speakerphone, about how she could run that place better than the manager, and one day she would. Santiago could never understand why she would want to run a Mexican restaurant instead of a Colombian one, but he also never felt comfortable asking her that. Maybe it was just easier to sell Mexican food to white people, who could apparently eat half a pizza themselves. There was a knock on the door, tap, tap, boom, which meant Angel. The answer was 1/3. He opened the door and Angel said, "Vámonos." Santi was about to ask where when his mother interrupted, calling out, "Donde?" "Casa de Mal," Angel shouted. Santi's mother nodded and turned her attention back to Tia Isabella. Santi grabbed his backpack, shut the door, and carried his bike down the stairs after Angel. "Mal's got the Nintendo Wii," he said. "We should play Mario Tennis." "Tennis is gay," Angel said. "And we're not going to Mal's. He's going to meet us at the pond." He gave Santi a mischievous smile, slung his backpack over his shoulder, and hopped on his bike. Santi followed him towards 16th and down the sidewalk through the warm spring evening. He was always treating Santi like a kid and getting him into trouble. One of these days, Santi would surprise him. He'd be riding ahead. He'd have something he wasn't supposed to have in his backpack, and Angel would be dying to know what it was. Thanks.
Finish setting up here. Future drink, sorry about yours. All right, thank you so much, Christopher. It was really great to have you back. Really great to hear chapter 2. Hope we can hear chapter 3 soon. I just really love what you're doing with that, and I hope the best for it. Okay, all right. Well, we'll keep having you back till we get all the way through, I suppose. I love that. Yeah, so I wanted to point out real quick here that we have a QR code right here. The QR code can also be found on these cards. There's some over on the table over there, some up front on the bar too. They're around. I have some in my pocket here. If you need one, you can ask me. But that will take you to our webpage where you can find archives from past events. You can find out what's happening at the next collection. And we have a really nice, what do you call that? Like a write-up. I wrote it, so it's not really a write-up, but it's, a description. That's the word I'm looking for that describes the show quite nicely. And if you do go to our webpage, you can also contact me if you're here and you haven't read before and you don't know me yet. I'm happy to always welcome new writers to this event. That all said, I do want to bring up our next writer now. This is going to be Phoebe Wang. Phoebe Wang is a poet and writer of fiction and nonfiction whose work explores the quiet sensitivity and hard-earned wisdom of lived experience. Her writing reflects a deep attentiveness to emotional nuance, memory, and the subtle transformations that shape a life. She was recognized with the Singapore Prose Competition Award, affirming her distinctive voice and literary craft. Blending introspection with clarity, Phoebe's work resonates across cultures and contexts. She currently resides in Seattle, where she continues to write and reflect on the human condition with honesty, depth, and a gentle, observant perspective. Please welcome Phoebe Wang.
Hi, Hi everyone, my name is Phoebe Wan, and thank you so much, Aria, for inviting me. This is my third collection, so I saw some like a really familiar face, but it's really hard to follow Christopher, and this is my first like a kind of on-stage read. So hopefully, I feel like a sweet poems to enlighten your day. So I'm gonna start reading. My first poem. Flowers are fragrant, more so than their beauty. The seeds are buried for years, till the first sprout broke the darkest ground. There are joys, there are anxieties, there's pride, there's fear. When dreams and realities collide, no one knows which one will win. People with suits, chatting, laughing, glasses with the finest wine are clicking. Condensed water drops are steaming out of the glasses. Dreams are screaming out of life. Some people look familiar. They might be souls you saw in the previous life. The energy and frequency level jumping around, up and down. And my second poem, this is literally the very first poem that I wrote last year. Okay. The second one, Tarot. Morning rain, tears open my dream with a cockish screech. Bad news is a breed of snake. It sneaks up on you, right when the happiest smile blossoming on your face. I was only surprised at how quickly I regained my precious balance, where my heart was not broken, but rather stronger. The third poem, Meditation. And for those who probably into meditation, you probably heard about Vipassana, which is like a 10-day silence retreat. I've done that like 5 years ago, and then this is my first kind of the second one, which is 1 day in Redmond. And the one thing that you need to know is kind of one of the guru's name is Goenka, which will be repeated several times in these poems in case that comes out as a foreign word. Okay, let me start. Meditation. Sunshine sent its beams through the church glass's window, light dancing on my face. My eyes are closed. My attention is concentrated to a tiny square under my nostril, above my lips. Goenka's ancient voice guiding my sacred attention to experience the sensations. I felt the cold air from the breath in, the warm moisture from the breath out, and the occasional itch and the tiny tinkling from a random wind. The attention sharpens its tip through the practice of Anapana. Then it moves to the top of my head. My mind concentrates on the top of my head to experience any sensations over the size of 1 inch diameter area. No visualization, no imagination. Goenka's ancient voices guided me, just the sensation, the reality, the truth. I felt heaviness, like a dehydrated dull headache. It came, stayed for a long while, then disappeared. I felt the scalp started vibrating, as if it sensed my mind's attention on itself. It vibrates with ecstasy. The mind's attention, its sharpened tip, then moved slowly and thoroughly from my head to neck, from shoulder to fingertips, from chest to legs to toes, then back up. The journey is long. The body is the map of life. There are blockage, numb legs, painful back, sharp spasms in my right abdomen. The sensations come, the sensations go. There are occasionally sudden and subtle vibration, swept throughout my whole body, like a tiny, mild orgasm. The sensations come, the sensations go. Goenka's ancient voice guiding the mind. Do not cling to the good sensations. Do not avoid the bad sensations. Maintain equanimity, equanimity, equanimity. And the next one, poetry therapy, which is a very interesting concept, but this is also how I got into poetry. You have faith in me. You have faith in everyone. You read a poem, just a few lines. You asked us to repeat the lines that resonate with us. No comment, no critique. Just repeat the lines that resonate with us. Then you hand us each a piece of blank paper. You asked us to let our brain to take a break. Ask your brain to go out. Take a cup of coffee and relax by the door, you said. Open your heart, pour your heart onto the paper. Only write what you see and what you feel, nothing more, nothing less. Every piece of white blank paper is an open invitation to your deepest consciousness. It is a secret door to the world of poetry, to the world of universe. And then the next one, the poem's title is I Keep a Dream Log. Every day, the first thing in the morning, I don't brush my teeth, I don't drink water, I don't eat. I turn the light with half dim and sit firmly in front of my computer. Type the keywords from the dream quickly. It could be an image, a word, an action. Those are the threads I could pull when I lost track in my dream log. Then I moved into deep writing. I love the expansiveness of my dream and my writing. I took my time describing a cabinet in the room I was in just a dream ago. I described how thrilled I felt on top of a hill and then ran down to escape a leopard's chase. I simmered in the rich texture as if I went back in my dream through the cozy boat of my writing. I had a longest stretch of 20 days of dream log. Then I fell into a few nights without dreams to hang on after wake. That happens when the dreams are scared away by my busy daily life. Dreams love to show themselves when they feel safe, relaxed, and have all the time in the world. The next one is called memory. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways, said Sigmund Freud. I have an interesting nature of memory. I do not remember people who did harm to me. I only remember people who treat me well. That is the secret to be happy. And the next one, you're the answer. I like asking questions to the elderly, to the young, to my peers, to the wise sage that I come across in life, sometimes in disguise. I have asked all sorts of questions. Why you decided to have a third child? What is the best way to parent? What brings you where you are now? Is marriage a sacrifice of individuality? I have received all kinds of answers and noted them down diligently. But when I took my morning walk alone, I realized the wisdoms lie within me. I heard my heart says, you should only have children when you truly want it. You had the best childhood, so you know how to best raise a child by going down the memory lane and looking at how your mother did it for you. You have made the best possible choices at any given point for a career that, in the hindsight, where all the random walk turns into a legendary path. A marriage should be an exemplifier of individuality. You find the right one that resonates with your frequency. Yes, I heard my heart says, you are the answer. And the next one is my English. Yeah, many of you probably noticed English is not my first language, so I wrote a poem about it. It is when I started writing poetry in English that I realized English is a language that I have been using for decades. I shouldn't be so afraid of writing in English. Look, when I write, I have all sorts of cute and sophisticated words jumping out of the paper. I greet them in awe as if the day I first encountered them, in Shakespeare, in Homo sapiens, in Alchemist, in Wall Street journals, in polymer physics, in All the Way to the River, in Gone Girl. And just yesterday, we share a book, a memory, a life together. I saw the words on the paper waving their hands to me and say, hi, you're here. And my last one, I'm pretty good in timing, I think. My inner child. When I write poetry and read it out loud, I heard my inner child happily speaking. There's no fear, there's no sorrow, there's no anger, there's no regret. There is only a beautiful, precious, happy child with an incredibly kind heart. I look at her so tentatively and didn't realize the tears rolling down my face. Thank you very much.
Such a long walk in our old space. It was so fast to get up here. Just gives me a second to just be happy about being in this new space. This is our second time in the theater now. Hugo House told us we outgrew the front room, which is fine, I suppose. We like it in here. It's nice to be on the big stage. Phoebe, thank you so much for that. That was really cool. I just am so impressed by you and the way you're able to write such lovely poems in your second language. I just can't imagine writing in Spanish when your English is much better than my Spanish. So really cool poems. I really appreciate you being here. So thank you so much. Before we get to the next feature, I do want to share a piece of my own. It's a piece of flash fiction. For those of you that maybe don't know, that's usually less than 1,000 words. What's fun about this flash fiction is that it has 7 chapters. So I'm just really happy to share it. It is called A Nice Pair, and that is a reference to Pink Floyd. This is a psychedelic piece about 2 boys on Halloween. You'll find all that out as I go. First chapter, The Last Exit. I was on the easy end of a horse costume. My pal Grant took the rear, and we cantered to the last exit on Brooklyn. The giant horse head reached my waist and acting as both mask and straitjacket, descended over a matching pair of furry trousers. Grant wore the back end like a onesie, his hands around my waist, the top of his head pressed into the small of my back. The body extended past his vision, so he relied on me to see, and I needed him to keep from toppling. The sidewalk stretched before us like a sunray. Passing cars were like moon patrol, bouncing along and avoiding mines. The labyrinthine doorway of the last exit slid and wobbled before us. We waited in line for our maps to the annual Halloween scavenger hunt. While men played chess and slung back cappuccinos and cigarettes, the room buzzed, chess pieces levitated and spun. Grant stood beside me, map in hand. His ass costume hung around his waist. His eye slowly fell down his face. Clue, once there was a river, now the path is one. Grant pointed his glowing finger at the X in the ravine. We're going to Ravenna. Grant pocketed the map, bent over and grabbed my hips. Out of the coffee house we trotted. A few old crackpots watched as we struggled through the door. Chapter 2, The Ravine. Walking up the Ave, we saw a group dressed as Oz. Dorothy pointed down the street and her arm tracked like a blurry fan. Scarecrow looks like Gene Kelly, I said. Will Tin Man hold up in the rain? Grant asked. I couldn't muster an affirmative. It started to rain and Tin Man's face melted. The rain obscured the streetlights. I blinked and stumbled, but Grant had a firm grip of me, and thrusting forward, we continued north. From the ravine, we went to Allegro, but at the ravine, I may have lost my mind. Going down the steep decline, I looked up at the opposite bank, and my field of vision wobbled like boiling water. The bubbles came at me and popped to make room for more. I reeled, and this time, Grant couldn't hold me. We stumbled down the hill and fell in the mud. Grant sat up and his bony face changed from red to green and then from green to blue. Please, I said, pull me up. I can't lift it. Grant sat there like a lighthouse, his rainbow head spinning like a warning. I was ready to dock, but unsure of the terrain. Clue. Above the alley, dressed in wood, a coffee house forever stood. Chapter 3, Cafe Allegro. The Allegro led us to Spaceport, but at Cafe Allegro I discovered that what coffee was about. The coffee signified the earth, our souls, and the universe. As I parlayed these truths to my companion, I felt him behind me. We became one as I tasted the hot liquid and let it fall into my depths. He wrapped his arms around me. I knew at once what was intended by coffee. Grant knew too, and we shared in the warm afterglow of sipping. Clue, light side down. Chapter 4, Spaceport. I could see the sounds bouncing in and out of the lights, said Grant. We circled the arcade, falling all over each other in the dark. Grant tripped, we fell. We laughed hysterically. He grabbed at my legs to mount himself. I did nothing in order to prolong the ecstasy. My man Grant pleased me to the threshold of delight as we fumbled around on the carpet. Words, he shouted. He tripped again. Everything is covered in words. He stumbled against the Moon Patrol console. A dozen faces turned, snapped in unison, interchanged and faded. Soon, the manager had us in the street. Take your shenanigans out of here, he said. I tried to count his fingers as he shook them, but I stopped counting at 23. Blue moon. We knew we had our clue. What comes after the spaceport, I asked. The moon. Well, to the moon then, Alice. Grant pushed into me hard. I was compelled to go into a gallop as he rammed his head into me. Outside Blue Moon, he stood up in the rain. I watched the water sink into his hair like a jellyfish. The tendrils, glowing and fluid, fell onto his face and obscured his eyes. I was amazed. Do you see that? He asked. The pen won't move in a perfect circle unless I control it with compassion. Pegasus. On 43rd and 7th, Grant stood up abruptly. Laughter crept bouncingly up my spine. Green and red bubbles popped from my lips. Grant sprawled on the sidewalk, groaning, awash in a yellow-green glee. The colorful laughter flooded his perfect skin. We heard a car coming, so we assumed our bestial position. A blue Mustang crept up the road. The passengers turned as they passed. We were wobbly yet frozen, occupying the corner like a wingless statue of Pegasus. forever gracing the streetlight with our mutual presence, bonded in stone. The Ave. No time passed at all before we were waiting for a chance to cross the Ave. The costumed populace tittered willy-nilly around the shops and bars. I computed the whereabouts of each and the destinations of a few. They wove and dodged as I pieced together the fabrics of their heads. Grant, unable to explain what he experienced in the dark, muttered behind me. Crossing the street, I led him into bliss. The clouds whispered, "Equus," as we descended under their blankets and we collapsed in the grass. Thank you so much. I am so pleased to have read that. So one reason we call ourselves a live magazine is we attempt to bring kind of a magazine feel to, as much as we can to a salon, which is what this really is. And so one way we do that is we bring in readers from other places. They send in videos. But tonight we're trying a new feature where my good friend Thomas Constam is going to come up and read in a little while. But first, I had the chance to interview him, and we recorded that, and we're going to show that. And it's a bit of an experiment to see how we like this interview aspect to our live magazine. And Supersonic by Thomas Constam is populated with a diverse cast of flawed humans. Constam portrays Seattle through the centuries, all the while remaining focused on a single immovable rock. And the rock, this huge rock, seems to anchor myriad stories like a hair clip in his braided narrative. It is at the center of a dying elementary school, the cornerstone of a land dispute, in the middle of the fight to be on the winning end of the legalization of marijuana, instrumental in a love story that follows the tragic trajectory of the supersonic Boeing jet that lent its name to the NBA team Seattleites now know as Oklahoma City Thunder. This rock perseveres through everything. I did have the opportunity to interview Thomas on a few craft elements of Supersonic. I also had the pleasure of reviewing his book, which you can link to from the collection's webpage. But here now, please enjoy the interview. Supersonic is a vastly varied narrative told from multiple third-person perspectives on 5 different timelines and in 3 different centuries. I thought it was a clinic in braiding stories and times together. And yeah, from a writer's perspective, I really thought it was a learning opportunity. And I wondered if you could kind of talk about how you crafted that and how you approached this idea of braiding all of these different things together.
I was willing to write myself into some corners. I cut about 30,000 words out of the book, which is almost half a novel in itself. But I started just with a toehold of an idea and was writing that idea. And then next thing I knew, I was writing about one of the characters' moms, and then suddenly I was writing about the city, and then I was writing about time before the city.
I think it's very common, especially these days, to feel sort of uncomfortable or deterred from writing characters that don't look and act like ourselves, right? And so, I mean, does this artfully treating each person, like whether they be Native American, Asian, Black, white, male, female, otherwise, you did it with reverence and humility and humanity. And I think that those aspects is what sort of bonds this diverse cast together in this braided novel. And I just wonder, yeah, you're welcome. And I wonder how you, as a white male, approach that, making sure that everybody was sort of represented honestly.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that we're all humans are pretty similar at their core. So I think the stem cell of a character is a few basic emotional states and wants and needs. And as you work up from that deep core of the character's humanity, which, then there are more superficial things which may impact somebody's life very greatly, but culture, gender, even the time that they live in, the core doesn't actually vary that much. Now, at surface level, or as we go closer to surface, I think, especially writing a Duwamish character, or writing a Japanese American woman in the 1950s, like that's way outside of my life experience. But so it's important to be very respectful to the character. And it's also just important to do your research and think about and try to learn about how that person might have viewed the world at that point, and how their life experience and their wider racial and cultural experience has impacted their worldview too. But I try to be very respectful to each character and try to unite them all along their core humanity. In writing about place, and the story of Seattle or any city or any place for that matter, it's a very slippery thing to believe that a place is ever one way. Place is really a concept in our heads that it's much more like a river, right? It's always in flux. It's always changing. There's an argument that we ourselves are never the same, that the 15-year-old version of you and the version of you now are, inhabit some variation of the same body, but it's all changed. So maybe everything has changed.
I want people to read your book without knowing how the interrelatedness pans out. But I do want to get to your reading too. So, and that's going to be live. So I really appreciate you diving into this with me. I really appreciate you having written this book.
Yeah, it's a real honor, and I really like what you're doing with this.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I can add film editor to my many hats that I wear for this event. I'm very pleased with that. But much more pleased now to bring up Thomas Konstam. Thomas is a Seattle-born novelist and the author of 3 books. Pulitzer Prize finalist Ed Park says of his latest, Supersonic, the great Seattle novel has arrived. Please welcome Thomas Konstam.
How's it going? Thank you for having me in person and on video. I like the Ken Burns up my right arm there. Kind of nice slow pan. Very cool. All right, so as Ariel mentioned, this book has a lot going on. It takes place in the 1850s, 1890s, 1950s, 1970s, and 2010s. I tried to figure out how to compress one chapter down into 10 minutes. Is that what we're doing, 10 minutes? And I was a failure at that. So what I decided to do is I'm going to read the prologue, which is pretty short, and then I'm going to introduce a few of the different main characters, and I'm just going to read like the first 2 paragraphs from each chapter. So it's going to feel a little clipped. But I think that's a little more representative of the book overall, rather than trying to sink into just one story. All right, prologue, and I forgot my glasses, so bear with me for some old man squinting up here. 1852, seagulls circle as the pale bearded men return in larger boats, this time with elaborately dressed women and children and a variety of unfamiliar four-legged animals. The birds watch through their yellow eyes as the newcomers saw down trees and plow earth into the tide flats, once rich with crabs, sea stars, and young salmon. Not the highest tides or the darkest storms could produce such change. The gulls learn to compete for food with a fresh desperation. In time, they are relegated to scavenging refuse and carrion. Many birds retreat along the shoreline. One small colony of gulls follows families from the longhouses as they flee inland. They fly up to a wooded hilltop crowned with a large gray boulder. There they find mice, soft roots, and even some smaller birds to eat. The gulls sit atop the rock, biding their time until the newcomers go back to wherever they came from and the things return to the way they used to be, which is what every Seattleite has said ever since. All right, and we're jumping up to 1856. Cecilia, Little Chief, as his friends tease him, stands shoulder to shoulder with the other children as they carve the pit from the wet winter dirt. They dig with sticks and 3 metal shovels they borrowed from settlers' cabins. Hot rings of raw skin on Cecilia's palms become water-filled blisters and then collapse into weeping holes of their own. The children work through the night without water, light, or pause. All the dead must be buried before the Bostons, the white men from the east, return from the safety of their stone longhouse and the metal boat just offshore, before the settlers can further disrespect the bodies of the tribal warriors strewn around the stump-studded hillside and crooked streets of mud. That's a little dark turn there to start off with. Lightening it up, then we're going to jump up to 2014. Sammy keeps an eye on her digital watch until it reads 1 p.m. sharp and then delivers 3 knocks on the new principal's door. She times them on a tight cadence, hoping that the knocks will convey a sense of efficiency and professionalism, first impressions and all that. She's no stranger to the school, though, that's for sure. Each of her 4 children attended Stevenson Elementary over the last decade and a half, and she's been in the main office for everything from tardy slips to forgotten brown bag lunches to checking on stomach aches, real, exaggerated, and outright fabricated. Sammy's also been here as a student herself, back when principals were more concerned about mushroom clouds than active shooters. Jumping along, also in 2014. So in each of the timelines, I tend to have 2 primary characters who kind of play off of each other. So this is Sammy's counterbalance in 2014. Sweat beads under Bruce's green 1996 Supersonics NBA Western Conference Championship hat. The frame cap, his wife says, smells like a wet dog or a dead dog, some kind of a dog. The one he wears every day to conceal the fact that his blonde ponytail is adrift on the rising seas of his scalp, no longer part of a contiguous landmass. He and his 8-year-old daughter, Sierra, push the shopping cart out of the elevator and down the endless rows of the parking garage to the dented, bumper-stickered back of his prized 1987 Volkswagen Westphalia van, the Westie. He curses himself for having let his disabled parking permit lapse, but now is not the time to dwell on that. And then 1971, we're cutting back again. This is Sammy's mom, Ruth. Ruth spins, I don't know how I'm doing on time, so just cut me off if I run. Oh, I got 2 more, I think I'm good. Ruth spins in her bed, her feet flying up past her head, folding herself in half, coming back around, ragdolling in circles. She's not used to drinking this much, not used to drinking anything, really. All that rum and pineapple juice and whipped cream and maraschino cherry and whatever else they put in that tall, ridged soda shop glass, giving it the innocent look of an ice cream float. She barely knew it had alcohol except for the metallic aftertaste. In the moments between spins, she slows down just enough to be hit with a combination punch of regrets. Regrets that she disobeyed her mother, Masako, who tolerates no insubordination. Regrets that she lied to her, or nearly lied anyhow, which she had never done before. Regret that she kept her mom up late worrying, anxiously rosining, and her mom's a musician, rosining and re-rosining all of her violin bows at the living room table. And then this is her love interest, Larry, 1971, Larry Dugdale. Prime rib, Saturday, while it lasts. Larry holds his index finger over the text on the plasticized menu. While it lasts, he repeats to himself. You waiting for someone, hun? The red-faced waitress asks him, a thin stripe of sweat rolling down from her temple. Yeah. He looks at his watch and says in his most forced proper diction, just my friend Ruth. She's only a minute or two late, and I'm sure she'll be here in any second. All right then, just let me know. The waitress moves on to the next table. Larry checks the prime rib details again. He even came by the other night and studied the menu. It was just like this one, but taped up to the front window. He stood outside the broiler, smoked 2 cigarettes, crushed the butts under his boot, and rode on his motorcycle home. I'm going to cut off there because I could keep going, but yeah, lots of different layers that all in a fictional neighborhood, and that all kind of come together, or hopefully come together, to build a bigger sense of place and the creation of a city over 150 years. And thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Thomas. I really enjoyed chatting with you about your book when we recorded that. Maybe I'll put the director's cut of our 20-minute interview up on our archive page. That could be a cool idea. Yeah, it's really hard to kind of cram 400 pages into 10 minutes, and I thought you did a nice job of giving us a taste. I really do recommend reading Supersonic. Bookstore Day is coming up on April 25th, and many of those independent bookstores stock Thomas's books, so I recommend supporting all of that. We are going to take a short break right now. We do have some great writers coming up right after the break. We'll take about 10 minutes, maybe visit the bar, the restrooms right out here. There's apparently a bookstore right out front, so see you in a little bit. Thanks a lot.
I'm special. Okay. Hell, so just regular spelling, 1 L. Okay. Some people, you know. Go. Thank you. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Yeah. I'm up next, so yeah. Very different things. I'm doing something completely different. Yeah, something that's very in process. So it's not complicated at all. Yeah. Thank you. Sure.
A lot of the places.
Do you need anything?
Horse on a mat, like going through, like just moving along.
Yeah, it's very different. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was reading in the old building, which was so cool, like that. Great. Yeah. It really is lacking. Yeah. Ah, appropriate. Really? Somebody killed themselves? Oh, okay. Wow. You made me really intrigued first. It would have been the appropriate place.
You know that, like, if I'm in the bar up there,
I didn't know that. Oh, I knew that. Yeah, we were here 6 months ago. You couldn't even see it. Like we go back over here. Build it back. I'm reading from a new thing that I'm thinking about. It's not literary at all. Sharing details.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Have you ever read anything?
No, I was joking earlier that you guys aren't ready for my writing.
Oh, really? Why?
I was sorry,
Yeah.
No, I was kidding. No, I don't know. For example,
Yeah. I'm familiar. I've seen a lot of like.
right now, the basically
Yeah, it makes you think. Yeah, okay. Yeah. No, no.
Leo.
Oh, going back to that, I liked how she used it, but I needed to be I like writing.
Okay. Yeah, I love that.
Like I'm like writing. Let's be a writer. What's
At one point, it was Claire Stevens in the book because it was actually, and there's a whole thing that Steve told me from time to time, you already know, that he was like the first governor was Stevens, since Stevens passed, and just kind of shit on, kind of maybe on the state one, but there's one stuff in there, and then I decided to take it like one step off, like I changed it. Yeah, so there's like a big tech company it's called Mothership, a step this way. It's called Mothership, and then there's a big aerospace company project, and there's a preeminent aerospace company, isn't it? So that's it's innocent, or just to be able to play with facts a little bit. But you did go to Stevens. They have been trying to change the name of Stevens. So I don't know if it's going to close.
Women's style, like play into it, so sexy, and you know, like whatever. Yeah, distraction and stuff. And there's something right.
Yeah, exposure is huge.
I mean, my wife works on culinary side, and so she's like, some of the schools are 100 students, and they're running the whole school still, and it's like, like one of the first buildings, where it's like some of the
Mario got it's good. Well, I feel like I have a chip on my shoulder, like voluntary chip on my shoulder. I finally just like that. You know what I mean? Everyone just says it all the time. I start saying it. Right, yeah.
I would just imagine self-delusions was children. People
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Oh, it's always fun. They come up with a while. I did the 4A, Austin 4A live player. I did the sound that I've been editing that together. Because I wasn't here for it. So, okay, now I just so many years.
I'm not hearing rumors that feel about Mr. Bass and hit you with his shoes.
Oh, I recognize you. I know. It's weird wearing clothes, I get it.
Not like rude, but just like this guy in the room with this guy for it. And just when it's
That's my last time to let Jason know, and I'm gonna turn the lights out, I think. Thank you, Jason. Well, welcome back. We're gonna get into our second set. Very excited about our readers coming up here. I did just want to mention again that we are not only a live magazine, but come in, Selena, if you don't mind. We're also what I like to call a public club. Originally, that was kind of a riff on our dress code that we like to come in our favorite fancy clothes, and that has a vibe of being kind of a private club. But historically, salons kind of are a dress-up occasion. But that riffed out to public club, and I started thinking, I really like the idea of a public club because I feel like the writer's world is kind of filled with sort of cliques and inner circles and rejections, rather famously, and I just don't really believe in that. So here at Collections, I do like to do what I can to push back on that and be more inviting and community-based and thinking more about, how can we be inclusive. So yeah, just something to think about. I do want to bring up our first reader of our second set. Her name is Amanda Knox. Amanda Knox is an exoneree journalist, public speaker, author of the New York Times bestselling memoir, Waiting to Be Heard, and host of the podcast Hard Knocks. Her second book, Free, My Search for Meaning, came out in 2025. She is also an executive producer of the 2025 miniseries, The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox, available on Hulu Disney Plus. Between 2007 and 2015, she spent nearly 4 years in Italian prison and 8 years on trial for a murder she didn't commit. She has since become an advocate for criminal justice reform and media ethics. She sits on the advisory council for the Frederick Douglass Project for Justice, serves as an Innocence Network ambassador, and is on the Innocence Center Board of Directors. And she is the recipient of the 2024 Innocence Network Impact Award and the 2025 Catalyst of Change Award from the Washington Innocence Project. Please welcome Amanda Knox.
God, I gotta update that bio. Jeez. Okay, so everyone was doing really great and literary stuff tonight, and I'm gonna do not that. So just pretend you're in a dive bar right now instead of at this beautiful Hugo House. And what I'm gonna do a little bit today is something that's very unpolished, very much I'm still working on it. So fingers crossed. It's called Cartwheel. It's a one-woman comedy show that I'm working on. The description right now, tentatively, is most people's midlife crisis involves a sports car or a sexual dalliance. Mine involves wondering whether I peaked at wrongful imprisonment. So here we go. I'm just gonna go until I shouldn't go anymore. So here we go. My biggest complaint about being a mom is actually my husband's biggest complaint. After a long day of juggling work and young kids, he'll reach out to me all romantic, and I literally flinch. Because the last thing I need at the end of the day is someone else climbing me like a jungle gym. Poor guy, it's really not his fault. He's handsome, he's fit. He's even trying to be helpful. Like one day I found an assortment of vitamin supplements lined up by my bathroom sink. Maca root, ashwagandha, ginseng. He threw the whole Asian street market at me. One of the bottles said, "Nourish your inner queen with female-focused beef organs." And I took it. I took them all. I'm really not sure if they're working. There's only one thing that reliably makes me horny anymore, and that, my friends, is meditation. There's just something about sitting there with nothing to do and no one demanding your attention that gets me all hot and bothered, you know? You start wondering what else you could be doing with that floor cushion. And it's awkward because I'm not at home alone. Oh no, it is a Sunday morning and I'm in a meditation hall with 30 other people. You wonder, is it just me? Like, am I the only pervert in the room? Or is everyone else doing it? 30 people sitting like saints thinking about humping floor cushions. Buddha banging, as it were. There's a Pornhub search for you. It's ironic, I taught myself how to masturbate in prison, which means that I was hornier on the cell block than I am now. At home, in my own bed, with my loving, cock-blocked husband. Welcome to my comedy show. My friends and family are really genuinely nervous for me, despite my spotless track record in the court of public opinion. They're not wrong to be nervous. For a woman, the only thing harder than proving you're not a whore and a murderer is proving that you're funny. It might be Stockholm Syndrome. I'm so used to being dissected under the white hot spotlight of judgment that I just seek it out now. It's like I'm addicted to punishment. Then again, it also might be perimenopause. We're all thinking it. Is she allowed to be funny? Am I allowed to laugh? And the answer is no. No. We are all risking getting canceled right now, or at least you are. Because, I mean, come on, what else are they gonna do to me? Ruin my reputation again? I'd like to see them try. I'm one of those like punching clowns or like Obi-Wan Kenobi. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Real talk, I've actually got a lot to lose because I'm at this weird stage of my life where I'm okay. Like, I swear, I never thought it would come to this. I'm okay, guys. I'm okay. Like, I'm kind of over it. And by it, I mean, Which isn't to say that it's over me. I'm that ex that Italy cannot get over. I'm still dealing with legal issues. No one ever apologized. The cops never faced any consequences. I have not been made whole by any means. It's just that I don't feel like I have to explain it anymore. Like I've done the work. I've produced my version of lemonade. And now I have other things on my mind. I've come into comedy through a non-traditional route. Most comedians do their time in the comedy world. I did my time elsewhere. And what can I say? The trajectory of my life has been anything but expected. My journey to parenthood started with a green crayon. Gross, not like that. I wanted to be a mom as far back as I can remember, and I was not shy about it. I have this distinct memory of walking the dogs with my mom and my little sister to my Oma's house when I was about like 5 or 6, yapping away about how I couldn't wait to be a mom. And my mom responded by making me sign a contract in green crayon. I, Amanda, hereby promise not to have kids until I'm at least 30 years old. It was very serious. Then again, I didn't spell promise right, and I didn't know what hereby meant, which means that this was my first experience of being coerced into signing a legally binding document that I didn't fully comprehend. Fool me once. My mom meant well, though. She just wanted me to have a life before I became a mother. She wanted me to have adventures, make mistakes, figure out who I was. I wonder if she regrets that now. You can't get wrongly convicted if you're stuck at home breastfeeding. Just kidding, you totally can. My mom had a rough start to motherhood. She had me the day before she turned 25, divorced a year later while pregnant with my sister, and by 27 was raising 2 kids on her own on a teacher's salary. The reason she was walking us and the dogs to my Oma's house every day after school was because she was too broke and exhausted to make us dinner. Oma was the safety net that kept food on the table and my mom from losing her mind. She never held it against us, though. My experience growing up was of a person who genuinely liked hanging out with me and my sister. She didn't tolerate us. She didn't endure us. She liked us. She read books to us, cooked with us. We were like the 3 Musketeers if they cuddled in bed every night. So we were like the 3 Musketeers. She drove us to soccer, gymnastics, softball. She was an Uber driver who ran on unconditional love. And my God, did she love us? I think that's why I wanted to be a mom so much. I just knew in my gut that we mattered to her. She would light herself on fire to keep us warm, And she believed in us. I have 2 more distinct memories from my early childhood. One was one of those walks to Oma's house. I don't remember what provoked it, but my mom turned to me and said, "Amanda, you are going to live an extraordinary life." Be careful what you wish for, Mom. The other was when I was 7 or 8 years old and we were making peanut butter sandwiches in the kitchen. And my mom turns to me and says, "Amanda, of all the things that I hope for you in this life, that you be rich, famous, successful, influential, all I want for you is to be kind." Talk about a low bar. This is what happens when you have a mother who believes in you. When I was 20, my dream was to translate Italian poetry. Not write poetry, translate it. I wanted to take something beautiful that somebody else had written and whisper it in English, like the LaCroix of literature. What did I know? I was 20, that magical age when you think you know everything because you just learned what Kafkaesque means. I went to Italy to find myself. I ended up with more of an eat, pray, prison situation. All right, I think that's about time. Is that about time? I could go on, but I think it's about time, right? Ariel? That's about it. All right, I'm out. Sorry, guys, there's more.
Thank you, Amanda. You have a special opportunity for comedy. I think that's really great. I'm really glad you brought comedy for us today. That was excellent. Yeah, I had the privilege earlier of telling Amanda that my therapist runs the comedy open mic at Rickshaw. And so I probably won't go, but you definitely should. Yeah, so funny. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much for being here and for being a part of our collections community. I do want to bring up our next reader. This reader's name is Katrina Barnes. Katrina Barnes is a creative writer who works at the intersection of color, cadence, and cultural memory, where story becomes both song and witness. A careful observer of the world and its quiet reckonings, she crafts fiction, screenplays, and poetry that center underrepresented voices and stretch the boundaries of genre. Grounded in her MFA from Goddard College and studies at the University of Washington, her works blend lyricism and social insight, offering reflections that honor identity, challenge convention, and resonate beyond the page. You can find some of her work on Substack at KAB Storyteller, substack.com. With more work to come, here is Katrina Barnes.
Hello, everyone. All right. I was just sharing with some of the other readers tonight how I enjoyed kind of going down the memory lane of Seattle back in the day and thinking about, oh yeah, I remember arcades. You used to go in and you have your coin and you set the coin up on the machine to let them know that you were next. Yeah. Those days. So tonight I'm going to read from a novel that I'm working on. I called it a light mystery. Mysteries are my entry point to writing. Grew up loving the mysteries, Agatha Christie, or watching The Thin Man on TV with my siblings. So, and I call it a light mystery because that's normal for me. Got a bit of humor. I try to have humor in everything that I touch base on writing. All right. Mason Abernathy had never ever in his whole life been more certain of anything. His Uncle Clive was part of a secret society, a society that put people into positions of power, a society that wanted to keep control of the social and economic direction of the entire country. A society that was generations old and willing to do anything to keep the status quo. He'd always admired his uncle, but now the thought of one of his favorite people was tainted by what he'd learned. There had to be some way to save his uncle, something he could do to make him see the light. It was time to put his research on spycraft to use. He would gather information and confront Uncle Clive with it. He would save him. He could save him. He'd been studying the work of Le Carre, a well-known mystery writer, and he was certain he knew what to do. He sat down and opened a web browser to do more research and found a few resources, which he promptly purchased on Amazon, while mentally apologizing to the independent bookstore gods. Oh, sorry, I need this today, sighed, and spun away from the computer and made his way into the kitchen. Time to make stakeout snacks, he said to no one as he opened the refrigerator. An hour later, his phone buzzed with a text confirming his delivery was shipped and would arrive before 9 p.m. Good, he said as he rubbed his hands together in excitement. He went about collecting other items he thought he might need and glanced back at the laptop. I should have ordered one of those long lenses for the camera. I'm sure Le Carre's step-by-step instructions, that's if he ever wrote them, they would be there. He set his items by the back door, ready to load into his car once the book and other spycraft tools arrived. He'd read the book that he ordered, another how-to book, while he watched his uncle's house. Let's see, camera, check. Flashlight, check. Food, check. Recorder, check. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to be recording. That's another thing I guess I'm going to research. He cast his eyes around the room and they landed on an unopened pack of adult diapers that were leftovers from his time caring for his father. That could be useful, he thought, and then shook his head. No, that would be silly. As if anything he'd come up with in the last day wasn't silly. He waved the thought aside. Still, he had a fleeting thought that maybe people were right about him, that he needed friends. He tried that, of course, but no one seemed to understand him, and no one believed in his conspiracy theories. He shrugged and sighed before he completed his inventory and walked over to his bookshelf to find more to carry while he waited. I could be like George Smiley, he said fondly as he pulled Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy from the shelf to reread for the umpteenth time. George Smiley was one of Le Carre's greatest characters. George Smiley would know what to do. George Smiley was a master spy. George Smiley was a master spy of the highest order, and if Mason did what George would do, it would work out. Chapter 2, Midnight Ride. It was midnight and it was cold. The windows fogged by his breath since he wouldn't turn on the car. He was being stealthy, like George, he was sure. He read by flashlight to keep from running down the car's battery. He should be miserable, but something about this whole cloak and dagger action made him insanely happy. He hesitated at thinking about the word insanely and whether or not it applied to him. He didn't believe so, even though he kept humming theme music that he made up for himself and reciting the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, as if his spying and the country's almost 250-year-old revolution had anything to do with his quest to bring his uncle back from the dark side. He wiped the side mirror and looked across the road to his uncle's house. He knew where all the cameras were and he wanted to steer clear of them, at least until he got the other equipment he ordered just before he left the house. He was sure a stealth suit would work as advertised and make him invisible to cameras. Okay, he knew that the item probably wouldn't work, but he was going to enjoy finding out. He noted the time and wrote it and his observations down in his notebook. 12:05 a.m. No movement in front of the house or on visible sides. Can't see the rear section. He'd done this every 15 minutes for the last 2 hours. He didn't really know what he expected to find. So when, on his next check, he saw a man approach the front porch, he was somewhat shocked, and he almost couldn't believe what he was seeing. Mason dropped the notepad, fumbled for the camera, and tried to look through the lens in the still, slightly fogged car window. I can't see. He rolled down the window and aimed the camera at the front door just in time to see his uncle open the door and invite the nervous-looking man in. Mason's camera clicked the whole time as he held the button down, even after the door shut, with the two men on the other side of it. He thought he recognized the man, but he wasn't sure from where. He waited another hour and a half, wishing that he'd put on the adult diapers before calling it a night. On his notepad, he noted that the man hadn't left the house, at least not by the front door. Morning surprise. After getting home from his stakeout and rushing to relieve his aching bladder, He had decided that rest was the next thing to do and that research on the mystery man could wait. So after a few hours rest, as he was sipping on a cup of coffee and making his breakfast, he saw a news report asking for information on a missing man. Mason did a double take and spit out his coffee when a picture flashed on the screen. The Mason ran to his camera and pulled up the pictures he'd taken during his stakeout. They were not well lit and a bit grainy, but he could swear it was the same man on the news report. Oh God, Uncle Clyde, what have you done? He stared at the TV, more confused and concerned than ever. Then he grabbed his laptop to see what other information he could find out about the man and his disappearance. He didn't know a lot about these things other than what he'd read in his mystery books and seen on TV. But wasn't it too early to say the man was missing? Didn't you have to be missing for a certain number of hours before making a report? And how did the news outlets get the story so quickly? He momentarily brushed those thoughts aside and kept digging through what he could find out about Scott Appleton, the man on TV and the man he'd captured on his camera last night. Scott Appleton, aide to senatorial candidate Dathan James, was last seen Wednesday evening by other staff as they left for the night. Appleton was staying late to finish paperwork and prep for a meeting in the morning. The office alerted the authorities when Appleton didn't show up for work and could not be reached at home. That timeline didn't add up with what he'd seen. Scott Appleton definitely was not missing when he saw him on his uncle's porch. Mason's fingers flew over the keyboard as he searched for more information. Senate candidate Dathan James commented, "We are concerned about the whereabouts of one of our family and pray that he is found safe and healthy. And anything that we can do to aid in the situation, we will do." Appleton has been on James's staff for the last 4 years. Checks on his previous history led to no records of disappearance or unusual behavior. So, what did I see last night, and why was Appleton, who according to the news was already missing at Uncle Clive's after midnight on Friday? Mason didn't know what he should do, but he had a pretty good idea what Carrie's character, George Smiley, would do. Get more information, and maybe, just maybe, it was time to try out that stealth suit. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. Katrina and I, as well as our final reader on video later, all went to Goddard College. I'm not here to promote them; they've closed since. But they did inspire us, I think, for this salon format. We would hang out late at night after our coursework was done, and we would all share what we've been working on together. And so when Jason came to me with the idea to do something like this, that idea had been sparked, and it stuck with me. I think the salon is a really great way to share, to be in community, and also just to kind of try stuff out. You know, like you got your mystery novel you're working on. I've got a poem I'm sharing later that I haven't shared, and Amanda's comedy, Christopher's novel, etc. We're all just here to kind of find out what's working, and honestly, it all is. But I want to bring up our final live reader tonight. My neighbor in apartment 4 is a collector of poetry, and that's good news to us poets that somebody's out there buying poetry. But they have this huge collection, and so I caught them leaving one day, and I just asked, who are some of your favorite local poets? And the first name that came out of their mouth was Doogie Tahat. So I'm really excited to have Doogie here. And Duji Tahat is the current Seattle Civic poet and author of Shibboleth, which is from Phonograph in 2027, as well as 3 poetry chapbooks, Here I Am, Oh My God, selected for a Poetry Society of America Chapbook Fellowship, Salat, winner of the Tupelo Press Sunken Garden Chapbook Award, and longlisted for the 2020 Penn Volker Award for Poetry Collection. And Balak Bayan, these are good words, finalist for the new Michigan Press Diagram Chapbook Contest and the Center for Book Arts honoree, along with Luther Hughes and Gabrielle Bates. They co-host the Poet Salon podcast. Now, please welcome Duji Tahat.
How's it going? It's cool. I know it's I'm the last one though. You can say hi. You can laugh if I say something funny, even if it's not a comedy routine. There are still jokes. I'm gonna start. I've been doing this thing where I actually start by reading poems written by other people because there's a lot of really good poetry, and sometimes the thought of people just like hearing only me makes me spiral. The risk is, of course, that you think Jean Valentine's poem that I'm about to read is better than any poem I read after, which is fine, because if it means you Google who Jean Valentine is after this, then honestly, that's the best outcome of the evening. I Came to You by Jean Valentine. I came to you, Lord, because of the fucking reticence of this world. No, not the world, not reticence. Oh, Lord, come. Lord, come. We were sad on the ground. Lord, come. We were sad on the ground. I write often in form. That's what some of those chapbooks are. I just like get obsessed with a single idea and then I just sort of like work it out. Currently I'm sort of working on ghazals. They're poems from like Persian, Arabian tradition. They have rhymes in them. They're couplets. There's like a setup and a punchline. And the couplets are like meant to be like a string of beats where like you can sort of move the stuff around and it would still be a poem, except for the last stanza, which has the author's name often as like kind of a signature. They're all titled the same thing too. They're called All American Ghazal. I'm not really from here unless I marry someone from here. My father worked the fields. My mother teaches kids from here. My uncles worked Alaskan canneries, yet no form says I'm from here. The myth is, it's mine, where I'm from. Say here, and I'll look. I know I have no book unless I tell you I'm from there. Honey, olives, fish over rice. What did I leave out? From here, anyone could sing a great song. Here's where tragedy really comes from. It's not the random stranger who steals your goat. It's the people you trust here the most, the ones you're closest to. Duji, so close to from here. You can clap it or whatever. You can do whatever you like. I grew up in slam where people literally talked in the middle of your poem. And like at bars where like people didn't know poems were being read. You know, like really. I'm unfazed by your indifference. All American Ghazal. This is a very Seattle poem. 100 young cranes sway over this city. Blue scholars say, why is it in this city? My kids' farmers market and play, one born a mile away, am I of this city? Lapu-Lapu beheaded the colonizer so a bloody bolo may protect you in this city. Council passed a resolution banning all forms of oppression. Swiftly, this city belabors the point. Sweeps, bellows, begins betrayal and avoidance. Officers of this city rotate our collapses, forget people every day, fish the river that feeds this city. There's no devil in the craft. He's in teaching the craft. There's a city inside this city. The Squid Jig's mad immigrant, it's true. 1,000 people move to this city every week and still no other Duji nor Dujanat Al-Rayyan leases for keeps this city. That wasn't like a plea for applause. There's permission. You can also boo. I was the one who booed the Oklahoma City Thunder. All-American Guzzle. On our first date, I admit I haven't left since arriving to this country. So of course, being dramatic, I became a poet's country. Years after divorce, I lost a legal fight in part because of my status, so indeed, a free country. Pho in the South End, oxtail in Queens, tinned fish, cannoli in Little Italy, no contact delivery, the food of my country. 50 or so provincial patches of grass, upon closer look, leaves. The edge where people live, phrase in this country. We can work on human rights while negotiating, the senator says on NPR, the prospects of nuclear war in our country. I was born in the Philippines, so my native tongue is partisanship. I'm many parties. I'm impartial in a country, a professional ministerial office holder, a biblical fortune. It's libidinal, the we in the ballad that makes a land. It's provincial, the line that cuts through sand. I is a line with a place to stand. I is a framing device. What good is a nation? Parts of speech like mine fragment, cut, clean. I'm rightless, but I have capital. Charge me, Duji, Précis, a person. I haven't decided what I'm going to read, which is a fun experience. I had like a plan and then I threw it out as soon as I got here. But I do feel compelled. I've read the Hugas for a really long time and I always feel compelled to read new stuff. So most of this is new-ish stuff. All-American Guzzle. Thursday lunch. There are holes in my eyes, but not the ones that make them my eyes. My optometrist sends me to a retinal surgeon, but I need someone who specializes in corneas. How little I know about committing to memory the curves of your face by looking. The poet says chiaroscuro, having not in years held a charcoal stick from its tip an eyebrow. The perfect dip of an ear's helix into folds upon folds is as unique as a fingerprint. It sure sounds like science. I look away, something changes. May I be curious? I love that. I've studied pictures of the falling man from 9/11 for so long, yet I am no closer to knowing. I've watched so much light in my lifetime already. The better question is if Eurydice called for Orpheus. When oppressive systems are so well hidden, Eros flees from sight, elbowing the mind, making sense of things. When you put it that way, I put it the way it is. I resent looking, isn't understanding long enough to call my lover within breath's reach. Where hips meet, the sight melts like ice in whiskey. Did we jump or fall? What I can see, Duji. I don't know. What I can see, Duji, when you close your eyes. This next one, I had part of writing in form is like the challenge of it, you know? I was the type of kid who, like, if you said you can't do that, you're like, oh yeah. And I had a poetry teacher who said, it's really hard to write puzzles and short lines. I was like, oh yeah. Turned into like a 4-page poem because they're short lines. So these lines are super duper short. All American Hustle. All stories tell the story of the beginning. I'm tired of telling my therapist I tend more than I admit to trust stories. I'm falling, flailing on the floor like my father. I'd like this to end. We'll live with ceasing, fading away. I get up from the middle of a story because I can. My side of the fence I keep clean on a 5th-story fire escape. A curious child who could be me in another story looks through a telescope at the beehives on a rooftop. Across the alley, inside the TV, beams Robert Ory, winning another Larry O trophy. Time is many things, why not story? My kids do what their mom's story tells them to, and it's real. That I'm mad as hell, but that story gets in the way of being here. It made me feel inadequate. It reminds me I was abandoned. Once upon a starts a fable. Childhood is the oldest grudge story. I obsess over the hero's narrative. I'm in love lately with love novels, the way every love story expands and repeats the first story. We've always dated, others goes the story. The sex has been great from the jump. Story, like animal hunger desire, is the only story. When talk turns to news, I lie. I'm good, I testify. I wake up the will to live stories on stories I see collapsed on a bleeding child. Children who look like children are dying, a grieving mother, thousands dead. It isn't complex, but there are levels. The price of war is a different story. Passive voice dusts the report depending on who thickens the plot. Settles a land, calls it history. On a street, I have a house, an attic, 3 kids, roses, rhododendron blooming in all directions. The story of children's blood on the street, the story on the street of children's blood, on children's streets, blood stories. The big shot is part and parcel the story. My kid offers fanfic lore as placeholder for opinion, so on the way to school, a story. During dinner, more stories. Before bed, another story. What I'm doing without a story or a country leads me to believe making is kind of fiction, kind of desire, not a poem. The way the end begins a story, the way Doogie story. I'm gonna end with my last my last poem? I'm gonna end with my last poem. That's sort of how all sets go. I'm gonna end lastly with what is in fact my newest poem. It has sort of become my civic poet poem. But I also just really like reading it. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Ariel. Thanks, Jason. Thank you all for being here. Yeah, it's like a Tuesday night. It's like not nice today, but it's starting to turn nice. And so like the fact that you want to come and hear people talk about like the weird things that are on their mind is pretty cool. It's called On Devotion. White folks do land acknowledgements in historically Black neighborhoods. Nice. Not every room knows that's a joke. Good for you. White folks do land acknowledgements in historically Black neighborhoods. The International District always has been Asian, but perhaps because Hispanics, insofar as these are coherent categories, moved in next door, it changed. So now both live where once was a Hooverville tent city mayored by a weird woman with a broom. In my neighborhood, I'm new to the turn of the till on this patch of earth. The morning plenary of baubles and the bamboo, the blue jay's flight path, omen or portent. There are here smaller and fewer trees, so a different constellation of birds, small gods for which I do not yet know how to pray, what bone to pick or burn, flip. I've never had a yard in the city. If the line is a plow pulled one end to another, readying dirt for seed, my sentences are the patch. The syntax of my garden make no sense some season, as in what floats above them shape them more than I would like to admit. Of course, there is what we say, and then there is devotion, balance of faith and action, for which there is aversion that makes us believe in the certainty of solitude, so hideously mortal. But listen, reader, beloved, even here, There is no de-peopled substitute. Even in our glass sphere city, cannot self-serve at the corner store or deliver by drone. Devotion is the till, the tool, the towel that stinks even after the wash. The air that breathes you knows all manner of lungs and furnaces and shivers, and the leaves, the trees, equanimity weathers. Feels so much like bravery and its interest in truth, or what it is as opposed to what I want it to be. Pain is not disorientation. Disorientation attends pain when we are not ready to be with hurt, to believe we can withstand what comes next. We must expand what we know can grieve. Scroll, tip, tap. Urban planners have historically planted, I learn on TikTok, male trees because less mess, and because private property is inherently theft, and because patriarchy and allergies. The history of displacement is basically invasion, but later I read trees are in fact very queer. Most tree species possessing both male and female flowers, either that or every flower has both pollen and ovaries. I watched a play today, and I don't know if I want to be the main character or do her today. A play watched me torn. It is a gift to be the object, to be in touch, to be with another, asking to be owed, owing, what devotion, to desire at all times. I am learning we are all prompted, being inducted into the grammar of animacy. When I say we, I mean the poppies too. The mimosa tree before and after it blooms. The 200-year-old cedar, the biggest in the city, cedering in our front yard. The coyotes frequent less. On the high hill, the hummingbirds, Sweetwater, the rabbits, all verbs. My grief is a relational dialect. When I divorce, my pain, the arrangement flattens, falls apart. Everywhere is home. My preferred language is listening, so I assume thanks and please, which can easily be mistaken for impoliteness. A kind of savagery projected onto me by a social positionality, stunned by the fear of knowledge, how it came to be. The only major American city named after an indigenous person whose defining characteristic was friendliness to settlers is now the seat of a county named after a civil rights leader who warned against the recruitment of his memory in the service of empire is a kind of devotion too. People have rabbit nature, I'm telling you. My lover told me this. It's bidirectional in every orientation, and the history of making it make sense is a kind of conquest. Hammers straight, the bright line of progress. It is so inevitable to lose people without attending to what we've done to lose them. Imagine what we've done with the earth. The place arounds and homes us. Nasturtiums sprout overnight when no one looks. Community is a word that works even when no one knows it. The only pronoun confusion that matters is that which determines who is alive to decide how we or they live.
Thank you, Doogie. My neighbor Scott turned me on to the right poet. I'm gonna stick with that. I noticed that Seattle is getting a lot of play tonight, and I think that's kind of awesome. I look for hidden themes throughout the evening, and I think that tonight is all about looking at Seattle in a myriad ways. So welcome to the stage, Seattle. Yeah, no doubt. We're going to earn our live magazine status here with my good friend from Dallas. She was outside of Dallas, and she told me that she moved, so it's possible that she now is in Dallas. I'll ask later. Her name is Jalen Renee Fisk. Jalen is a science fiction, fantasy, and horror author and the fiction editor for James Gunn's Ad Astra magazine. She often explores themes of transformation and identity in her writing and loves all things unsettling and strange. Her debut short story collection, Side Quest Stories, was released in 2024 and won gold in the Reader Views Literary Award. Please welcome on the screen, Jalen Renee Fisk.
Hi, it's Jalen Renee Fisk, back again to do a reading. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be back here a year later. I think I was in the first collections, and now I'm here Again, on the 13th collection, my favorite number. And I'm going to be reading something very special. It is a story that was published in 2024, I think, by Allegory Magazine. It is in my collection, Side Quest Stories. But it's one of the lesser popular stories. And I think it's because it's a more difficult story. And it definitely gets into a lot more realism than maybe some of my other fantasy. It's still a fantasy story where people in this world, very like our own, but there are folks who, through touch, can learn everyone's past and everything's past. And it's called psychometry. And it's a type of magic. And it's very subtle, and it doesn't really have a lot of uses except to preserve and remember. It can be used for bad things as well. But our narrator here has that ability. And I'll just get going. This our river, these our gods. This is how I remember it. It was a Wednesday. It was the afternoon. That's when I first learned about the missing boy. I stood on one of the many pedestrian bridges, finishing a ham and Swiss sandwich for lunch and looking at the soda cans bobbing in the water. There were only 17 that I could see, which was fewer than I normally saw on my lunch break. When I overheard some kids as they walked by, I hadn't used my napkin yet, so I decided to write down what the kids talked about. I know it sounds stalkerish, but I like to save things, remember them. That's the historian in me. I very well could have grabbed one of the teenagers by the arm and learned more by intuiting their past than just listening and scribbling on a stray napkin. But that's also the historian in me. We prefer to observe than use our psychometry. Here is what I heard. How old is he? Who? The mayor's son, the one she can't find. 17. Betty ran away then. It's not like he got kidnapped. He could have run away and then got kidnapped. But why? Mayor Drennan can't have that much money. She owns the waterworks. That's something. Look at that water, black as coal. Don't tell me there's diamonds in there. The kids kept talking, but they got too far for me to hear more than that. It was enough to get the gist, missing kid and all that. Runaways and kidnappings might be common in a bigger city, but here we had our own personal way of getting lost and disappearing. I stared at the water, murky, almost inky. The man-made river wound in and out of the city like a serpent, wrapping its streets in a chokehold of dark water and separated citizens. You can't walk straight around here. You have to go right, then left, then cross a bridge, then right, then left. Then maybe you'll end up where you intended, or maybe not. Maybe you end up in the water. Later, that's what I heard the mayor was claiming, that her teenage son fell into the canal, or maybe was pushed, or maybe was killed and then sunk down to the bottom. There's any number of ways someone could end up down there. It was a poem that tipped off the authorities as something more sinister than running away or getting kidnapped. They found it in the son's room and decided to print it in the newspaper. His last declaration, his final manifesto. I cut the poem out of a newspaper I found lying on some steps. Ignore the food stains. I discerned its history, and it's not blood. Just ketchup from a 3-year-old clumsily eating fries. The poem titled Lost Treasures. Eyes, half open, glassy and gray, but not as gray as the sky above. I tell myself, don't look away, for only I can see. Dead eyes do not look skyward. Hellward, murky water, not fire. Good for drowning and sinking far below. As fish feast on your pallid feet, walking no longer required. Stones, smooth as bone. Will they find your gnawed remains nestled among the moss and lost treasures? Did he drown himself? Did he witness a drowning? Does he want to drown someone? I can't say I've never felt at least one of those ways myself, so who knows what it means. The point is, the mayor is draining the entire snake of a canal to find her son, and we peons can't tear our eyes away, hoping to gain a glimpse of a dead body, because you can bet there will be sighs of disappointment every time the dredges come up empty. Me, I've seen dead bodies. During the wars, historians like me were called out to identify the dead. I never want to see another bloated, bloody, dismembered body again, or any dead body for that matter. They rope the historians in with narratives of honor and duty and glory and all the usual romanticized lies that come with war that are easy to believe when the fighting isn't at your doorstep. But the truth is soldiers are simply used up and thrown away. I don't want any part of that. Nowadays, I mind my own business and use my psychometry abilities to run the pawn shop. Whatever junk people bring in, I can hold it in my hands and see its provenance, its journey from creation to my hands, and therefore, it's worth. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that wasn't Seattle. I love Jalen's writing. Jalen and I have an agreement where she sends a video once a season, so come back to the 16th collection if you want to see Jalen again. I am gonna wrap up our evening with one short poem for you all. It is a children's poem. I work with children. I'm a second grade teacher currently, and I never thought 10 years ago, if you asked me if I was going to be working with children a week before my 50th birthday, I probably would have said it. What are you talking about? But it's been really awesome these last 3 years working with kids, and it's inspired some of my writing. This one is called "Stop and Listen," and I'll tell you before I read it that I'm colorblind, and so I thought it would be interesting to try to write a poem about what a rainbow sounds like. If you can stop and try to listen, you can hear a rainbow in the sky. You can hear the sun as we spin by, and you can hear the rain as it takes away the dry. If you can stop and try to listen, you can hear the yellows as they glow. You can hear the blues from saxophones, and you can hear the rain as it drips and drips and flows. If you can stop and try to listen, you can hear the reds where bricks are laying. You can hear violets as they're tucked into their bouquets, and you can hear the rain as it soars beneath the rays. If you can stop and try to listen, you can hear the greens in wind-blown leaves. You can hear oranges falling from their trees, and you can hear the rain as it goes sideways in the breeze. If you stop and try to listen, you can hear a rainbow when it's spun. You can hear it ends in pots of golden sun, and you can hear the rain as it slips until it's done. And that is the conclusion of our 1-year anniversary collection. You can see behind me here that we have, we're going to keep on plugging along, collection number 14 on May 6th, every first Wednesday. We'll be having Caitlin Andrews, Bill Hollins, Annika Horlings, Thomas Walton, Aubrey Chavez, and Michael Dubon, and video performances from Dean Gorman and Bahare Amidi, who is the poet therapist that Phoebe mentioned earlier tonight. So I'm excited to find out more about that. So I hope you all have enjoyed yourselves tonight, and I hope to see you all May 6th or sooner. Have a great night.
Yes. Oh, no.